Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
No, I was going to say this one is like our conversation. Remember about the bathroom? He said, wait, I got to turn it up.
Don't wash your hands after taking a shit. Be a man.
Be a man.
This
I love
guy.
that.
I love him.
You know, there is an argument to be made.
What was the other one? It was like your wife's birthday or something. What was the?
Or it was like, your wife's a vegan? Take her to a steakhouse on her birthday. Be a man.
He's got like the perfect accent.
He does, yeah.
Be a man.
It's so dry.
Such a.
Don't let anyone
There was
ruin
one
your
he
day.
said. He said,
Hold a grudge until you die. Be a man.
he was like,
What was the
you have a
dialogue
nail in
one?
your tire? Don't fix it. Wake up every morning and put new air in it. Be a man. Every morning. Why am I like that? I do that stuff. I really do.
What's the difference between being a man and procrastinating? I think probably procrastinating.
I received that.
Because it's not like you're consciously making a choice to keep filling it up. You're like, I don't want to deal with this today.
And then 10 days go by.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now with my oil change. I already bought the oil change, and I just haven't gone yet. And it's like the quick Valvoline. It only takes 15 minutes.
Oh, and you have any? Oh, okay. I
And
thought you
every
meant
time-
you bought materials and it's sitting in your garage for you to do.
I'll
an oil
never do
change.
that again. But I just like every time I'm just like, oh, maybe this is the time my car takes a dump and stops working because I've neglected it.
Yeah. Well, that happens with me with house projects. I'll be like, all right,
Same.
I need a door. I needed a door. I went and bought a door at Home Depot. It's still sitting in my garage. And it's just like, I mean, that was a few weeks ago. And then, same thing like with my windshield washer pump. My car went out. I bought it. Sitting there. I've had it for a month. I mean, I'm just like, if I take the step to buy this, I'm going to put it in. Like, eventually I do. Like this weekend, I did a whole thing with the pool, put all the new filters in and all that stuff. No, alcohol is a great preservative.
Even like these seltzers?
Yeah. I don't think alcohol expires.
Just make sure.
You know, like they talk about
Supposed to get better, right? With time.
It can lose carbonation, can't it?
Distilled alcohol.
yeah,
So
if it's
I mean,
open,
well, that's yeah. So
Wine.
like you think of all these like
wine isn't-
bottles of rum and Pirates of the Caribbean that have been
Oh,
buried
John
in this
Jack.
island.
It's true. Buried treasure.
That's true.
That sounded pretty
Why is the rum
The
gone?
rum always gone. Yeah.
Why is the rum? Don't throw the rum overboard.
No.
Oh, that's funny. So, what'd you say about Tampa Bay? You said they're in the Stanley Cup. Oh,
So yeah, Stanley Cup starts Wednesday. So
you know what else is in Tampa tomorrow that I'm going to? Coldplay,
Ooh, I know
Really?
a handful of people that are going.
dude. I'm so jacked. It's a bucket
big
list
Coldplay
thing for
guy.
me.
Yeah.
You've never
my
seen 'em?
gosh, no.
Dude, good for you.
is it Raymond James? Where are they performing?
Yeah,
So outside. Mm-hmm. That'll be good. That'd be so dope.
I mean, it'll be. I just can't. I don't even want to think. I'm like Luke before he went to the Bieber concert. I'm just
Dude, we could talk about
So
beefs.
jacked.
Have you guys seen?
Yeah, what's going on? with my
Heartbreaking,
man?
dude. What is it called? Ramsey Hunt syndrome or something like
yeah.
that?
But is that something that will like heal, or is it like
mean,
his whole life?
It's supposed
now?
to be one
Well, I
of
looked
the,
it up because I was intrigued about it because my dad had Bell's palsy. That was before probably 9 months before he died. He got Bell's palsy and it just kind of like destroyed any kind of morale he had. But basically, like it was worse than what like half his face was just sagging. Like it
Your
was
dad
it
or
was bad.
Justin?
My dad.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then he got on his other side, and then like he just couldn't taste anything. He couldn't eat, and all that. So I looked. So that it intrigued me. Like I was just like, oh, is this different? Is it the same thing? I looked it up
Footsies with me, Tom?
because Bell's palsy can reverse. It just I guess there's a nerve
Bobby.
like that. Well, the way I think the way it works is there's a nerve that's like basically run through a part of your skull or your bones or something. If it swells and it gets constricted, then like it can't. Basically, your face just all the nerves in your face.
Wow. So, is
So-
there something
Is that
he
like
did to
constantly
get-
don't-
painful?
I don't think it's painful.
Oh,
I just don't think. I think
just
it's
don't feel
uncomfortable.
anything,
I mean,
right?
it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
because you can't eat or whatever.
Right.
And I looked up and it said this thing. It's just like not as many people get better from it. So
Oh no. Can he still sing?
I mean, he's got all the money that he could possibly need to try.
I think singing would be tough with half your face. I mean,
You saw him while you could,
I don't know.
guess. Worst case scenario.
I don't know.
Yeah, because this
and prayers
says,
out to Biebs.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate this is, but it says some affected individuals develop sensorineural, I don't know how to say that, hearing loss, a condition in which sound vibrations are not properly transmitted to the brain due to a defect of the inner ear or the auditory nerve.
What caused it? He just woke up with it?
It says in a rare case, it may become permanent. Yeah, I guess. I think it's one of those, you know, like herpes simplex, like 1, 2, 3. There's like a bunch of them. I think it's one of those, and it's just super rare, I believe.
Well, it makes you a little more scared of herpes then, doesn't it?
I don't think like the cold sores can get in your ear kind of a thing. I think it's a whole separate virus, because I think it's a virus that attacks like your ear or something with your equilibrium.
Is it still an STD?
I don't think so.
All right. Well,
Good question, though.
And didn't something happen to his wife? Like she had like a mini stroke or something?
Oh, I
think
did
she
hear about that.
What's
they've been
going on
through
with them?
I don't know, man.
We need to...
Busy. They need to just calm down.
Take a
just
nap.
relax. Chill.
yeah, part of it's stress probably.
Dude, and I
go
think especially with Bieber, he's kind of been in a very unfortunate situation where it's like he's had to
followed
really
everywhere he goes.
carry, like literally almost like carry the weight of the world on his shoulders
I was 15
since he was a kid. I mean, it's just
Hit it.
when I mean, when anything and everything you do is going to be just recorded, scrutinized. I mean, I think it just creates a lot of stress. Like he probably just,
I can't imagine.
he probably can't just like live and do what he wants to do. I mean, the amount of like every decision or everything you say or do. I mean, you have to think about like optics and.
My man. Hey, reach out if you need someone to talk to.
Well, and he's got the whole.
Always got your back, JB.
And he's kind of holding it down for like Christians in Hollywood, so he has that whole pressure of.
Whatever that looks like. I'm sure it's not easy.
In a world where it's probably not the most popular beliefs to hold.
So you know what I think would be interesting to talk about, and this isn't necessarily religious, but what's interesting is if we bring up anything political, you can really be certain that most of the people in the religious community would fall on the right side of the fence on a lot of these issues, right? So, it's kind of false in the same kind of relatable category. I think it'd be interesting to talk about things like, we talk about inflation, progress, universal basic income. And I guess, does everyone kind of know what I'm kind of framing right now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's like, Elon talks about displacing so many jobs just with AI, and so like you talk about, you're going to need people. People are going to like, you're not going to just be able to have that workforce learn to code or whatever shit, it's just like, there's not going to be a place for everybody. So at some point, all these things have been brought up about universal basic income, which is a completely, if you're looking at politically, it's on the left side of the spectrum, right? And so there's a lot of people that are, as far as capitalism goes and all that stuff, who wouldn't be into it. But I think it's interesting.
Does that mean everyone makes the same?
No. Well, that means that everyone would basically get a stipend. They could frame it however they want. So, like, maybe if you make above a certain amount, you don't get anything. Like, kind of like almost like how welfare is, but it would be basically a standard amount of money. Or you could do it this way, which is much simpler: a standard amount of money that everyone gets, right? Call it I don't know, $25,000 a year. I don't just say that. To pay for some basic needs, right? Because the whole idea is because of progress, because of everything that's happening with automation and stuff like that, we're going to run out of jobs for people and stuff like that. So I tend to agree with the idea that it's going to be necessary at some point, right? I think I think what's been brought up recently is like the truck drivers, right? I mean, so like you talk about Tesla trucks everywhere driving themselves and all that.
Yeah.
That's a huge workforce, right? I mean, my uncle's a truck driver. So it's just
They
like,
make bank.
Yeah.
some of them, I mean, they work hard. Like they're always on the
they're
road.
gone,
They're away from their family. I mean, that sucks. Like a lot of that
How many
sucks.
years till like the trucks will actually be able to drive themselves without like
anything.
any human in there for some sort of failsafe. I feel like we're still a long ways off from that.
Yeah, I feel like we're a long ways off from the cars doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, like there's people that bought like this full self-driving like years ago, right? Thinking that like, oh, and they got a discount on it because it slowly keeps going up because at some point they're going to release it, which is funny because I think I'm not completely. So I had pre-ordered a Cybertruck. I'm not completely bought into that because, you know, I mean, say it takes 20 years to come out. Full self-driving doesn't follow the driver; it follows the car. So you bought full self-driving for a car that's 30 years old. It's not going to work.
Yeah,
The car's not going to work anymore. So it's like, so it's one of those things where I'm not fully bought into that because I think at one point it will happen, but just due to the complexity of human interaction and how we have to make decisions, I mean, I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
Have you guys ever seen Back to the Future? Come on.
Yes.
Doyle.
The young guy asking the question.
Well, I was obsessed with it.
It's a classic.
Me and my sister used to watch all three consecutively over and over again.
I have the
nonstop.
poster in my bedroom.
So the one episode
Marty
where they're
McFly,
like,
bro.
isn't it?
What's your
2000
favorite? What's your favorite?
I lean more towards the Wild West one, where they're in the Wild Wild West.
Third one?
Oh, really?
I think so.
I think
I feel like I go with the classic.
I like
just the first one on most.
the first
series.
one. The
I think
first
I
one's
might agree
great,
with
but
that, too.
I actually do like the second one where it was so trippy, like where they went to the future, and at one point, like Biff was like the head of this, like you know.
But that episode, aren't they in 2020 or 20?
Yeah, they're in something. I think we passed it.
Yeah.
and it's just
I remember
like,
them talking about that.
Yeah.
what the hell's my hoverboard? Bro?
Hoverboards.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing
we
we
have
have
hoverboards, right? I mean, they're just not
Well,
like
they're
on
called
the
hoverboards.
Right.
You can
the
call
only thing
anything a
we have is
hoverboard.
the self-tying shoes.
True.
We do have that.
We do.
Oh yeah, the shoes.
Yeah. My
Those
friend
are
has
pretty
them.
gangster. Those aren't cheap either.
No.
I'm pretty sure they're expensive.
Oh wait. I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah.
Where is it? What?
It's the shoes
think
from
it's
the
Nike.
movie. They like made them.
Yeah, yeah. Where they're like smart shoes.
Really?
Yeah.
They tie themselves.
I could see that little motor because, like my snowboard boots, you just like twist the thing and it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Right.
it's tighter, so I could
It's
see
got to
that
be
maybe.
similar.
Gotcha.
But they had flying everything.
Be careful though, because that's like Final Destination type stuff.
What?
They just like strap you in and you can't get out.
Is that what you think about?
I don't know. I'm just like, with all this, like, all
Final
it's gonna take
Destination.
is like one robot to kill one
what a
person,
series.
and then
It's
we
the
have like the whole
Justin-
iRobot, you know.
Justin walks into
conversation.
every room thinking there's a Final Destination scene somewhere. He's like, "Where's the danger?"
We should do
this
a
it?
Final Destination marathon in the office.
Oh man,
Those movies are
there's so many marathons I'd like to
borderline
do.
hilarious.
That's true.
in
Let's
some
just start
ways.
with one and we'll work our way.
They are borderline
You just got
hilarious.
pancakes.
You're just like,
There's no way.
"Yep, that." Yep.
What can you do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Some
Yes,
of it
you
you're
just
like,
gotta level up.
Well, there goes another one.
There goes another one. I did finish Stranger Things, by the way.
So good.
Oh man,
My favorite
I haven't
season.
started it.
it is
haven't
good.
either.
It is good.
100%.
Aren't the episodes super long?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
The
Each
la-
one's like its own video, like movie.
Yeah. Well, the last episode was an hour and 40 minutes.
And most of them are like an hour and 15 to be
Yeah.
like the early ones.
So
Oh, some credits, but-
it's great. I mean, the first episode at the end is shocking, but
Is it the last season or they're going to do more?
I think they're doing one more after this. But They only released the first half of this season. They released the second half next month,
Like an Ozark
July
type?
1st. Yeah.
Well, because I think they took like 3 years to film this one, didn't they? Or at least from when this last season ended.
I don't
Like, there
know,
was a
but the
massive
crazy thing
gap, 'cause
is,
they
like-
look a lot older.
Well, yeah, but then Elle was like. They had her as a young, like you couldn't
weapon.
tell any of that was.
weapon.
You
Dude,
couldn't
she was
tell
on
any of
Hot
that was
Ones.
CGI.
She's like a whole grown up now. It's crazy.
Well,
Oh, she was on Hot Ones?
She was in her other.
She
crushed it.
She turned 18 this year, I think.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So, well, she was also in that like Enola Holmes or whatever.
Who else turned 18? That was kind of a the
Wasn't
Catch Me
there
Outside
like
chick.
wasn't
Remember
there like
the Dr.
conspiracy?
Phil Catch Me Outside chick?
I forgot about her.
Dude, you know she's like
Was it 50 mil?
millionaire. Yeah. Off of OnlyFans.
Dude, as soon as she turned 18, boom.
Well, she
50
like
she's put out the
doesn't
receipts.
she like
50
barely post on
million.
Instagram too because she's like, Instagram's not paying me to post these things, so she'll just be like, I'm gonna post all my content on OnlyFans. You're gonna pay for it. She makes so much money.
That's insane.
I know.
I just don't even know what I mean, obviously, I know what is right and wrong. Well, maybe. I don't know. Like, what do you do if
Dude,
you like?
you should do it. Now your family watches this, probably, huh?
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Probably not.
So would it be considered right or wrong to start an OnlyFans,
If you were dating
make
a girl,
50 million, and then you give 40 million to feed starving kids?
Right. I
So,
think
I
that's
think there's a
awesome.
conversation. To be
So are you morally reconciled? Right? Is that
had. The Lord forgives all.
That's tough. That's tough because really you're taking all that crooked money and making it clean. Who knows?
Yeah, that's.
Well,
an
what's
interesting
crooked about it?
perspective.
I mean, they don't even post people like they're not posting like naked photos on OnlyFans. I mean,
times,
some people are.
Yeah.
But like Bad Baby, for instance, she's not posting.
Well, I'm pretty sure the way
she's like in lingerie and
Well,
stuff like that.
Well, most of their money comes off of like the private messages, right? Not necessarily.
So yeah, people are like, it's still selling your body, right?
Yeah.
People are getting off to that shit. I mean, let's be honest, so it's like,
Right.
Well,
whether
there's
you're
a whole
naked or not.
Well,
whether
that's
you're
what's
naked or
crazy
not.
about like with like Millie Bobby Brown.
If it's
and
not
then,
you, it's someone else. So you might as well make the money.
Yeah, it's definitely an
It's my
interesting
mindset, I
debate.
guess.
It's an interesting debate for sure. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. I mean, you just think about someone who doesn't come from, a religious background, or maybe they may not have any sort of relationship with, their parents or family or whatever.
Or none of them know about it and they just want to make some money.
However. I
No,
mean, it's
because
just-
I've heard of people years ago
'Cause
when it
aren't
first
most-
started. There were people in the church, like girls that were just growing up doing it. Like it's crazy. Like I mean, here
Talking about OnlyFans or something
here and
else?
there, you would hear about it. OnlyFans. It's like you'd hear about this girl, like, oh, by the way, she has an OnlyFans.
Well, there's a
You're
whole,
like, what?
Well, there's a whole different element where it's just like, well, that's why it's kind of, for me, it gets a little creepy because like I've always I'm 32 now, but it's like now when I start, and if I'm like gonna like go out to dinner with someone or whatever, like it's like I'm for sure in the age bracket where it's like they probably need to be like within 5 years. Or I don't know. I'm not gonna like.
I thought you were
have a
about to
hard
go
cutoff.
the direction that you Google them and like you just check them, see if they're online first. Like if there's any
On
shit
the
you need to know.
OnlyFans.
But
Do
it's
I
like
need to go to dinner with them or
it's-
can I just follow them?
it's so. You gotta, no, we don't need to go into that. It's just crazy because it's like part of the reason
Hot take.
I feel like with some of these girls, it's like there's also this element of like they're barely legal, and so that's kind of like, or even the storyline of like, oh, it's like a Christian girl or like a church girl. There's like, there's probably some like weird jacked up like fantasies involved in some of that stuff too.
Probably is. I mean, and the further we get into that's the problem, right?
It's just
like,
perversion if you want to go back to like biblical kind of concept.
You know what's crazy though? Perversion doesn't have a limit. Like it
sure.
can get into some crazy stuff. Like, and you're just like,
Well, it doesn't
what?
even need to be like Luke. You could probably speak more to this, but when you really boil it down to like scriptures, like perversion is just seeing it and then just twisting the intent or the meaning slightly to end up in a different place. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't need to be this massive thing, but it's like if we just miss the mark by like this much, or we just our metrics are. Most people think they may be a good thing, but if it's not.
well, and
just
the crazy
best
thing is, it's like from the Bible's perspective, it's like if it's perversion and it stays in the bedroom with your wife, it's fine. It's just like
so you're strictly sexually. Yeah,
you're saying like if you have some crazy fetish and it's just like it's just within the bounds of marriage, like I guess that's fine, right? Like it's just
as long as you communicate. I don't know. I don't know if that really goes into scripture.
Safe word.
Yeah. Pineapples. But one of my favorite stories always in like scripture is when you see the account of like Jesus comes and stays at like Mary and Martha's, or comes to Mary and Martha's for like dinner or whatever, and then Mary's just like chilling at his feet, and Martha's like running around trying to like prepare a meal and get the house ready, and Martha like is basically like, Lord, like tell her to like help me. Like she's just sitting there not doing anything. And then Jesus basically just says like, she's chosen the better thing, and I'm not like, I won't take that from her. And so it's like, we get a lot of that, especially in ministry where, so many of us just get in that like hamster wheel of just serving and whatever, and like doing the ministry aspect of it. But a lot of times we forget to really just what is the actual important thing, just sitting there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the concept of, the more time you spend with somebody, without a doubt, no matter what, you're going to start to take on like characteristic traits, like language, like, right. We start hanging all the time now. We just say the same words.
Yeah, it's
And,
low
you know,
key.
there's-
Gotta risk
Low
it for
key,
the
you're
biscuit.
right.
Yeah, right.
Risk it for the biscuit.
Exactly. But it's just that concept of like,
You're
you know,
right.
that's like a tiny little perversion, but we just see it a lot in the church where it's just like people get upset because they feel like they're pulling too much of the weight, or they feel like someone else isn't really doing their part or whatever. But
Yeah, it's interesting that the term perversion, it can really, I mean, all the stuff we talk about in the church is perversion, like, right? Like, so when we talk about, okay, the way the church manipulates people into giving, the way the church like does it, you know, some of the topics we've covered, it's really just perversion of what was originally like, you know, what was really the heart behind all this stuff. And then like the church twists it.
yeah, and I love how Bill was giving specifically. I love how Bill Johnson says like I can guilt someone into like tithing or giving, but I can't guilt someone into a lifestyle of generosity. Like it's like so much of this stuff. It's like the problem is we just get. I think we get so focused on behavior modification that it just, without realizing it, so much of it just becomes about like the checklist and following the rules.
And that's tough because
we don't really like take the time to just like, hey, how, you know, how's your heart?
Something I've been researching recently is, I don't know if I've talked about it before, but like manipulation, is it like if you're like, can you accidentally manipulate someone, or does it have to be intentional? And so I've been
I think you can accidentally manipulate someone, well, without intending
100%.
to, but typically that comes from a place of you're just good at manipulating and you're at the point where you don't know you're doing it.
yeah, but is that manipulation or is that just influence?
I feel like what I'm saying is if you're that good at manipulating where you don't even recognize it anymore, it's a problem.
True.
So,
The hard
is it
part, though, is
manipulating, getting someone to do something you want?
it's just selfishness.
Yeah,
It's like this is better for me, so I'm gonna approach this relationship.
To get them
You can
to
talk
do what I
relationally.
want.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna behave in a way that just this most best serves me or whatever.
well, you could also manipulate people for a different goal that would be righteous, I guess. You know, you could say something like if it's like I want to manipulate this guy to like give money to this homeless guy because I'm giving money to this homeless guy. It's like, well, that's not necessarily selfish.
Because what about like a Tony Robbins? Would you could say that like in a sense it is like a, I don't know, brainwashing might be a little like
No,
intense.
it's definitely manipulation.
But it's like I agree with you. Like for the sake of kind of calling people into their highest self or
Or
their
is
best.
I
version
feel like
of
the
themselves.
difference, the line is like manipulation versus influence. And what I've kind of gotten to so far is that if you're manipulating, it's for like it's like selfish, like Justin said. But if you're influencing, it's for the best for that person and for like you. Like there's no one that loses if you influence correctly. But in manipulation, you're trying to get someone to meet your means, like at the cost of their good.
Well,
If that makes sense.
part of it,
yeah.
what's hard for me with all that
It's an
stuff
interesting
is
line.
just the world we live in. Because it's like I agree with you. Like
I hate the term influencer.
The problem
I
is
hate that crap.
Why?
I'm just so sick of these influencers. I'm just like, all right, man.
Yeah, when you
Like,
see it in the Instagram bio,
Oh yeah,
and you're just like, well,
I'm an influencer.
that's like to me, that's like
Yeah.
a title that like other people should say about you.
For sure.
I like. To me, it's just I can never just be like, oh, I influence people for a living.
yeah.
No, this is funny. Was it like what was this a John Chris thing again? It was just like he was making a list. That was a best of John Chris thing. He was making a list or something. And one was like male influencers in their 20s or something like that. It's just like no one wants that. Like it's just
Dude, we're in this weird world now where
like,
it's
do you know
like,
what you need? You know, like that's the thing. A lot of these influencers are young.
dude, this next wave where we're currently at, I mean, who knows what's next? Pray to God it doesn't keep moving in this direction. But it's like the young people, like the TikTok, kind of that's the big social media platform, right? The big TikTok stars, they're literally just the people that like lip sync and dance
On TikTok,
and like try to like
yeah.
look sexy, like
And you know
it's like
what?
Which is
those
like
are-
so cringy to watch.
it is so awful. But it's
Yeah.
like somehow
But you know what's
like
crazy?
these are the people that are like rising up and now like they're in like movies. Like there was just a movie like the remake of like She's All That or whatever
Oh really?
had like one of those big movies they did remake and like the main chick was like from TikTok.
Well,
That's literally it.
The thing that makes that dangerous is what I was just about to say is that I think I wish more old guys, obviously don't know technology, but with all the wisdom and life experience would be more influencers. That's what we need. But instead, it's like kids are being raised by kids. And it's just like they get all this influence, and then all of a sudden they come out with an official position on something or make this outrageous video about a hot take on like a controversial type issue, and now you have this following of people that believe something crazy.
Right.
Well, it's this weird. So they call themselves like creatives often, but it's this weird world.
I can't stand that either.
Where like you're not creating anything. You're just hopping on the latest trend, and you're doing your version. Like that's. I mean, I guess I get imitation is the sincerest like form of flattery. I guess whatever. But it's like you're not creating anything. Like you're not actually doing anything original. You're literally just like, what's popular right now? Let's like do the little video and dance to it and see how many views I can get.
But if influence is to like for the better, like if someone's watching those influencers, as I use air quotes, on Instagram or whatever, am I going to watch that and be like, am I just going to try and copy them?
Not you, maybe. But
Well,
I'm just
like,
saying,
if I'm the girl or little boy
maybe
that's watching.
I mean, to me,
that's not
the crazy
influencing,
part
that's
is
manipulation.
These are the videos that are getting the most views,
Right.
to the younger generation. So, like we talked about it before, but it's like TikTok in China is like they boost videos about like education and like succeeding.
well, that's so
in, like a healthy way.
So
And
maybe
then,
it's both. So maybe it's like.
is there a responsibility from the platforms to?
Well, that's
an
a different
impossible
conversation, and I think that yes, there is responsibility.
But
I mean, when
there's no money and responsibility, so
I know,
or not,
but I mean, it would have to come from the government's the problem, and then you have everyone who would fight that. I mean, yeah, because you can't leave it up to
people.
Okay, so if people have like a strong moral backbone and like who are heads of these companies, but that never happens. So.
Right.
And like I mentioned, and we've talked about capitalism and greed and money and all that stuff. It's just, and there's a strong push from a lot of Christians, what call a lot of them right wing or whatever, to say, okay, well, it's up to your, it's personal responsibility and up to you to do the right thing. Yeah. This is like, sure. Well, you think these are the people that are heads of these corporations? No. The boards of these corporations, I mean, most of them aren't Christians, right? So it's like, I get what you're saying, but at some point, it's just like, yeah, the government's going to basically have to step in and control and make sure the right thing is happening. Right?
Well, and how crazy, like look what we're living in now, where it's like, I just saw this morning that I think starting at like 7 a.m., they were supposed to have this massive, like, I forget what it's called, lockdown DC or something like that, where they're supposed to have like massive protests in the streets. Cause I think maybe today they could like potentially release their official, like whatever, the whole Roe v. Wade thing that kind of blew up.
Oh,
and so it's just it's so crazy because even in a world we live in today where we created, an incredible like political system like the U.S., like the United States of America, it's crazy because like what are the odds that in Trump's 4-year term, he had 3 different Supreme Court justices to nominate, and it's like out of nowhere just because these people died at the right time. Like honestly, low key, it may be like an argument for like this is like God kind of a thing where it's like the odds of 3 people just like leaving in the matter of 4 years, like it's probably never happened before.
Yeah,
and that's ultimately what's led to like where we're at now. So it's like I'm not saying like this is like God's will, but like people would probably look at that and say like this is like unheard of. But then now we're in this place where I think starting today they're supposed to have these big protests and all this stuff, but.
Well, people do, like we talked about, people read the devil into everything. People also read God into everything, where it's like, well, yeah, I mean, and they latch onto that. Just like heads like Trump. I mean, they just thought Trump was God's soldier, right?
Special boy.
I mean, when really, like, it's just like, yeah, I mean, no matter who you vote for, I mean, you look at that guy and you recognize, like, he's obviously pandering to Christians. He's not a Christian. Like, I mean, like maybe he doesn't drink, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Like, but again, people like see that as synonymous as like an angel. Oh, he doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. How nice. We need him in office.
Did you guys hear the story on Saturday of the van of 31 members of the white supremacist group Patriot Front
A van?
They were going to riot.
That's a massive van. Was it a bus?
Our bus, maybe. So, I mean, it says van.
Sorry, these are the kind of things I get stuck on.
Yeah.
Truck. They say truck.
Not least important.
I know, right? Oh, a U-Haul. U-Haul. It was a U-Haul.
They all shoved into a
I guess so. So some random citizen saw them all just piling into the U-Haul and called the police, and police found them shortly after. They're on their way to riot the Idaho Pride event. And they were going other places as well, not just the park where the Pride event was happening. But yeah, 31 of them in a group called the Patriot Front. And they had, only one of them were from Idaho. They were from 11 different states. And they had one smoke grenade, shin guards, shields.
What?
And yeah, they were planning a riot. On the back, they were all wearing the same like outfits and like patches and logos. And on the back, I think, what they say it said? Redeem America or something like that. Yeah, reclaim America on their back.
So it'd be interesting to know how many of those people would claim like some kind of faith.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know.
That's you get into an echo chamber.
Is it?
Yeah,
because
into an echo chamber. I mean, like what you were saying with social media companies, like a lot of the people that are in charge of, like however you feel about it or not, you see a lot of censoring happening a little bit more on one side than the other. But it's like anyone, and again to that, it's like, it doesn't matter. You get in a little echo chamber and you just only hear your ideas.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it doesn't matter how crazy they are.
Yeah.
Eventually that's just reality.
When everyone you look up to feels the same way about something, you're gonna think that's all right.
Well, and there's a
That's
sense
insane.
of, for those guys,
I
there's
don't-
probably a sense of belonging. They're probably largely
believe
outcasts.
they're doing the
But
right
shout
thing.
out to that random person that saw a bunch of people loading into a U-Haul and they're like, that ain't right.
Also, it's,
Bro, that's how you deliver
Bunch of-
zombies. That's not how you deliver people.
that's hilarious. But even like, so maybe it just goes into this mental health epidemic. Cause like, did you hear about the story of the kid who came from California to go shoot Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court justice?
No, I
He
didn't
shows
know that.
up with a gun, evidently at his house at like 1 or 2 in the morning. I think maybe he took an Uber. I don't know. But he basically shows up. There's like 2 U.S. Marshals at his front doorstep, just with all this stuff popping off, and people have been like, protesting at their houses. And then all the Supreme Court justices got doxxed, so all their personal like addresses and stuff got put out.
Oh, shoot.
Oh man.
So this guy just shows up. And he's like, I think he was like young, like 18, 19 or something like that. Came from California with a gun, and shows up at the house. And there was 2 marshals, and evidently, like the story goes, he just like walked down the street and then calls the cops and just turns himself in. Basically, just says, I was here to hurt like Justice Kavanaugh and then hurt myself.
Oh
and
my
then,
gosh.
And then just changed his mind
and then
turned
just
himself in.
I mean, it's a weird 911 call, because the dispatcher's just like, you can just tell he's just like, what? Like, it's just such a weird. So you're like, maybe that just goes into the whole conspiracy thing, because you're just like, dude, this is just bizarre. Like, there's so much bizarre things happening now, where you're just
That
like,
is so odd.
how does that
crazy
even
things.
happen?
Yeah.
Like why? Like, if you had, I'm just like, if I'm in that situation and I want to do that, and like 2 marshals are there and I'm not going to try to go in anyways, like, why would I even call the cops? Just go
Right.
home. I just go home or try another time. Like,
No, I mean,
it's so weird.
No, I think he was treating
Or maybe-
911 as a suicide hotline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Really,
probably
'cause
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of what he was doing.
Help me.
But you just wonder how does a kid that age even, like, dude, you're 19. You should not even have any, like, you shouldn't care about.
I mean, the kid that just did the Texas shooting was 18, right?
yeah.
Well, yeah. So that, ultimately just the mental health
Insane.
problem.
No, you know what they need to do? They need to make the alcohol age 18, the gun age 21, unless you're in the military. Solved.
That's fair. Or you have to go through like a super extensive like psychological evaluation.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to
If
know
you're-
how
if you're
many
under
of these.
21.
Granted, the Vegas shooter was older, but like, how many of these shooters are in that 21 and under range?
I mean, it's got to be most of them.
Got to be a lot of them.
Or at least when you see the school stuff.
You guys hear the other conspiracy? Sorry.
I'm here for all the conspiracies.
Did you guys
Let's
hear
do it.
about the other one about the
Where were you
the
Friday?
Buffalo the Buffalo shooting, and how like one of the guys was like, he was a former cop, I forgot what his name was, but he was in the grocery store. He was one of the victims. But apparently, I don't know how real this is. I haven't looked into it, but I've seen like 2 videos on it. But apparently he like came up with a way to like get rid of gas and run vehicles off of fucking water. Sorry, off of just water.
So they offed them.
That's what they're saying.
I've heard that before.
Totally believe
Because
Really?
I heard about this guy that was able to create hydrogen like from water, right? And then was able to run his engine. So literally, you just put water in.
What a dream.
I know, and he disappeared.
dude. I hear all kinds of stories about.
And then
that stuff with, like,
there's other
cancer, too.
times where like these oil companies or whatever companies come in and just give people like they buy their patents for massive amounts of money, and so then they have the patent on that technology,
And they don't
do anything with it.
He was a retired Buffalo police officer, and he worked as a security guard at the grocery store. And he was working. He worked on water fueled car engine.
I mean, I totally
He was
believe that.
for the past decade developing a car engine fueled on water.
I remember hearing a story once about a guy who was using like eggs and like embryos and something with that to like help treat cancer, and was like, the story goes it was like actually helping people, and then like within a matter of like months, the FBI raided, took
Embryos,
everything.
So like they killed the embryos. How
I
does
don't know
that work?
exactly. It was. I remember it was something with chickens and eggs, and it was using
Chickens. Oh well, chickens. Who cares?
Yeah, well, I don't. Yeah, and I don't know. I forget the.
I thought you meant human embryos.
Oh no. I'm pretty sure it was with like chicken eggs and stuff like that. But like
No, but Big Pharma came in.
Yeah, that's the kind of the conspiracy that like
They lobby the FBI. I'm
know,
sure they own the FBI.
within a matter of months, it's like we don't actually want to see the research. Oh, you want another conspiracy? You ever look into Nikola Tesla, which is kind of hilarious.
Yes, do that one.
Crazy. So like, do you know that how the story goes? It was like Edison and Tesla were
Right.
competing against. It was like
Edison stole all his stuff. Yeah.
because Edison was DC, right? Direct current. And then Tesla was coming in with alternating current. And then Edison essentially had a big backing and a lot of money behind him. And they basically just went on a big smear campaign and just everything was like discrediting Nikola Tesla and all his work. And now it's just so funny because it's like the company, and I mean, Elon Musk is doing incredible things with Tesla, obviously. But it's funny because it's like named after a guy who was creating like the next generation of electricity, where it's like we just harness the energy from the electromagnetic field of the earth, and it's just as much as we could ever need for free. And then like Tesla as a company that was still just like super. I mean, everything's got to be for profit, but I think the idea was Tesla was trying to create an energy grid that was essentially free that we would never have to pay for.
Yeah. I mean, and that's.
And then that's what he was obsessed with, the pyramids.
That's tough.
He was so convinced that he did everything with 369 were like the numbers, because he believed it's like kind of the foundation of the universe type of a thing. And like he wouldn't stay in hotel rooms unless the rooms were all like 3, 6, or 9. If every time he went into a building, he would walk around a building 3 times.
Super OCD.
He was just crazy by the end of it, because he died like not that long ago.
What was that movie with Jim Carrey? Was it 23 where Jim Carrey was like upset? You guys know what I'm talking about?
I don't know, but the Tesla stuff is fascinating to me, because it's like
interesting.
supposedly the FBI came in and seized all of his work and all the cases. And in one of his diaries, I think he wrote about having like 20 some plus cases. And then at one of the museums, I think there's only 13. Like they say there's only 13. So there's like a discrepancy
Interesting.
between some of his work, supposedly.
I mean, dude, you think about all the complexities of the world, how many like closed doors there are. There's got to be so much crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, just in every category.
Well, that's what sucks, dude. It's like people with power who are making money off the current system, like clearly don't want the next generation of technology to come out because they become obsolete. Or like we were talking about this the other day, like how many doctors literally have specialists in radiology or stuff like that. Like you really think there's not gonna?
Yeah,
we're just gonna get rid of that.
That's tough, man.
Industry.
I mean, you really, and it's we need to be able to make the government more efficient in spending money, more efficient in the speed at which like they're able to do things. Like,
well, we need to get like.
I mean, because at that point, then the argument isn't as strong for like literally everything capitalism, right? Like because that like we're seeing that it's problematic because the people who are making money just want to keep making more money. Mm-hmm. And they have responsibilities now to shareholders, and so it causes them to sometimes do some sketchy shit so they can stay profitable.
For sure.
And then it's like, they want to stay at the top. And then like there become these monopolies, companies get acquired. Like it's tough because like you have a lot of startups now, which is cool, like to where you'll have companies challenge other companies' ideas, but they'll get bought out by the bigger companies at some point, and you're just like, well, that doesn't do anything for anyone.
Yeah.
This is the same companies running this shit. So yeah, it's just like, well, the food, that one company that like controls all the food supply or whatever, or all the like genetically modified seeds for farmers and stuff. I mean, just like it's insane,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, I think there's just a weird disconnect where it's like the average, because like just the fact that politicians or like congressmen and women like are allowed to like trade in the stock market knowing what laws are about to be passed and stuff like that. Like there's these hilarious stories of like Pelosi and her husband,
obviously Pelosi,
that have like, I'm sure there's a ton of them, but hers is just the most ridiculous, where you're just like, they amass this massive net worth and like they do all of these like stock market moves and buys and dips and stuff like that. And you're just like, it's just so bizarre. So you're like, the average politician is probably making like, think about how much money the average net worth of like Congress members versus like just the average American.
Well, I mean,
And
Congress,
it's like
Congress
we're expecting
people,
these people.
I mean,
to like
the president, what makes $450,000 a year? I mean, right?
It's nothing crazy.
So it's,
I mean, that's a lot, but
well, the president. I mean,
Right.
so it's like the Congress people. I mean, they got to make at least a couple hundred or something.
yeah, I think Speaker of the House is like almost $250,000,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
and then it kind of tears down from.
But you
there.
don't make that for 30 years, and then you're worth $200 million. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is
Well, and there's
happen.
because you have a lot of people who get into it that are like they have very successful backgrounds beforehand, which like I love the idea of like very successful business people.
I love the idea of it not being a full-time job. Like
Yeah.
I love the idea of like, hey, you come here and like the way it used to be when we were first when we first started was that people had other jobs that they went back to once their term was over, which was only for so many months.
Right. Well, yeah, because I mean, dude, most of those guys in there now, half of the year they're just spending on like re-election efforts, and they're just trying to stay in office.
Such
like
garbage.
It's like we really, if we wanted to make this thing healthy, like it's never going to happen because they don't want to give up. Nobody wants to give up power. It's just human nature. But it's like I mean, term limits probably should have been a thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So we'll come back to the government stuff because I started with UBI and we ended up off the rails, which is fine. Just it was intentional, everyone. But going back to, we'll back up real quick because I wanted to like tie up some of the loose ends we talked about. The influencers thing, manipulation versus influence. I think that, and I was going to say this earlier, but we went off on another thing. Personally, it's just like I think they're doing both things. So like I think the whole thing is about intent and what everyone gets out of it, like you said.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah. So you can't just say that because the end person is getting something out of it, they're not also being manipulated. So I think it's one of those like, so I think that whatever amount of whatever you get out of something, like that would probably be more in the influence category. But at the same time, they're trying to make money. They're trying to increase their base, get more popular. So they are manipulating you, but you're also getting something out of it, right? So it's just like a pie, right? It's like a pie chart, right? If someone's manipulating you to give money in church and they're clearly doing it like selfishly, their whole pie is in the manipulation category, right?
Yeah.
Like
For
a
someone
spectrum,
who's
you're
social,
saying. Yeah.
maybe they're giving 90% and they're just like asking 10%, you know what I mean? Then they're still 10% manipulating. It's like, it is what it is, but it's just like, they're on the better side of that scale. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I see it.
There was a example where it's like,
Because at some point they are asking for something out of it. They're trying to get something out of it.
It's
You know what I
like-
mean? Like no one's doing it just to give 100%
pro
of
bono, yeah,
themselves.
no one's just no
yeah,
one's
but
just-
it doesn't necessarily, like, what if you're doing it for like, not like money? Like, what if your hope is you're just like walking someone through something in life and you want to have influence over that person? So it's like, the example I read was it's like gravity. Like, sometimes gravity is really good because it keeps us from like flying into space forever. In that instance, it's used for good. But if you slip and fall off a 7-story building, it could be bad because now you're right.
Screwed.
And so it's like, it's 100% has to be intent. If you're being manipulated to give money, you know, it's not good. But if your intent is for like, you care about the heart of this person and, you know, you're trying to set them up in the best of ways with no like hope that you'll benefit from it other than knowing that they're benefiting. Like there's a difference, you know?
I mean, I think you're never taking self out of the equation.
Right.
Because if you're that guy that's like, hey, I've lived my life, I'm successful and all this, I want to get back. You're still doing it to get that feeling of, you know, feel good. Like you're still doing it to maybe fulfill something in yourself that's like, all right, I want to do like this. The only way I feel 100% fulfilled in myself is if I help these people.
Sure.
You're still doing it selfishly in a way, but
So question then.
I'm just saying it's still part of that pie to me, right? Like maybe that sliver is just real small of self, but it's just like, you know what I mean?
But if it's like, what about the self, I think? Like if you're like, if your intent is for myself to feel like I'm doing what I'm called to do, I think that's different than, it may be under the category of self, but it's not like a selfish ambition.
Yeah. No, so what I'm saying is that pie chart gets to the point where it's like you're passing that 50%, like you're now you're on the majority side of like, all right, I'm mostly doing this for myself. You know what I mean? That's why I said it's more of a pie chart. Because I feel like you could claim selflessness until you pass a certain point, and then it's like, well.
So my question would be then, with the Bible and Jesus as our example, like when you read the Gospels, like do you feel like Jesus was doing stuff to manipulate people, or is he just? Because I would argue that what he showed us was he basically prioritized his relationship to the Father, and then he was essentially filling up, and then when he was out among people, it was like pouring himself out, right? Where whether that's just like healing people or just loving on people. But to me, it doesn't seem like this. I don't think Jesus came and wanted to influence people. I think Jesus literally just wanted to introduce a kingdom of heaven in a sense where, like, because when I think about, like, when you said, like, you know, you want to influence someone to help them or to get them, you know, the hard part for me, and I think I've talked about this before, but like with religion, it almost demands that you are supposed to influence others, right?
Sure.
Where, you know, when I think about it, just trying to be,
Paul talks about persuading people, which persuasion isn't that a way of manipulating?
Well, so that's exactly, like, that's where I would maybe see it a little differently right now, just because it's like, I don't want to influence you to do something, even if it's going to help you, because ultimately, like, I'm not helping you to really, like, learn the voice of the Holy Spirit, if you want to call it that, or the conscience. Like, it's like, because for me, it's like, we talked about it before, but if I can influence you to make certain decisions, like, someone else can come along and influence you to make other decisions.
And that's
it could be good or
not
bad.
the goal. Yeah.
But I think for me, it's like the most important thing that we can leave people with is a legitimate, I don't know, call it a journey of self-discovery or whatever, but it's like, learn to, like, know that internal voice that really, like, you can drown out all the noise, and, like, you know, it's like, is this being done out of, like, a place of, like, pure intention,
right?
You know, or whatever. But like, it gets really hard because, like, you have people like, you know, Tony Robbins, who, it's like, you can't really argue the impact that he's made on the world. But the hard challenge is, like, the man still needs to pay his bill. I mean, he has a lot of companies, but a lot of these guys, right? So a lot of quote unquote influencers, like, the unfortunate reality is that they need to pay their bills, and they're going to use their influence or leverage their influence to pay those bills. So it's like,
if your pie is that imbalanced, though, like, what I'm going back to that.
But how do
I'm
you,
sticking with this?
The hard part is, like, how do you ever really know
The heart.
No.
the heart behind, like, why is this guy releasing another book or stuff like that? Like, it's
Well,
just,
you never know, because some people just release another book because they're out of money. I mean,
well, so do you ever hear about Smith Wigglesworth? He
What a
was
last
like
name.
bro. I mean, the dude,
Smith
according to the
Wigglesworth.
stories, like, he was one of the most incredible like revivalists, I want to say early 20th century. But I think he was in London for a season, and then like there was like reports where he would pray over people and they would like come back from the dead, like stuff like that. And like, and so like, I remember when I was like at AG, like he was like one of their kind of heroes. They had like some of his original notes in like the National Archives, stuff like that. But he was just like a very respected, like pastor in the early years. But I remember when they asked him about it, he refused to write any books or even write any sort of like a autobiography. People ultimately wrote a book on him. And there's kind of one that's kind of the most popular, but it was just really fascinating hearing him talk about like, I have no need to write a book to try to influence people. Like the Bible is the book. You need to read that, and you need to allow that thing to change your life, or however you want to do it. And the hard part for me is that we just live in a world now where we just need money to pay bills, to live a certain kind of way. And so we're just going to find the best, easiest way to do it for the most part. So if you can leverage your influence to pay your bills, like it's just tough, because then once that's part of the equation, it's like, I mean, this may not be the best example, but it's like a little bit of poop will jack up the whole recipe, right? Like that kind of thought of like making brownies, put a little turd in there. I mean, but the whole batch just kind of becomes tainted. It's
interesting though, because like I believe you're supposed to leverage your influence for the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. So like every human has influence in some capacity, right? Whatever it is. So if the idea is you use wherever you're at, whatever your job is, whatever you've been given to, give glory to God. So it's like, it's a weird line, because if people are intentionally writing books just to pay the bills, then yeah, they'll have to face God one day about that. But if their intent is to help the kingdom of God expand, then they would use the rewards of that to also do the same. So,
yeah, it's just tough, because when I think about it, it's like if the goal is to become more Christ-like, it's like, if that's the goal, I mean, we should be just reading the Gospels all day, every day.
Yeah, but there's hundreds of thousands of people that will never touch a Bible.
That's fair.
So how do you know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah. No, it's a tricky thing. And I think I go back to where ultimately, like, my kind of challenge with religion right now is it forces us to make judgments and say, like, I am saying that your belief system is wrong because it's not going to take you to the good place. So you need to listen to me and believe what I believe. And what I would argue is, like, the very essence of our existence, and to just really be present. I don't know. I don't know that it's, like, when I really think about it, I don't know that I was put on this earth to try to, like, am I here to try to influence and manipulate people and things, or am I here to just really live and just have a beautiful existence on this floating rock that we can't really explain?
Yeah. A lot of people,
and because it's prevailing thought that the afterlife could be either really good or really bad.
Well, we talk about,
and all of our decisions we make while we're alive here, kind of go through that filter. Yeah, just thinking out loud.
Yeah, and as far as the call from the text, it's I look at a lot of people in the church, and a lot of people just have good intentions or whatever. But then there's a lot of people that just try to get other people to believe so they can be validated in what they believe. And that's selfish, right? I mean,
sure.
But you've seen that, right? It's just like people fight so hard for what, and they just go to these like protests and whatever they do, they feel like they're doing the right thing. And it's just like, well, a lot of times they're just trying to like get people to think that they're doing the right thing. They're trying to do something for themselves to make them feel like they're on the right side. And I mean, that's just, I see it in the church too. And it's not even, doesn't even have to be a protest. It just, it could just be, people just, it's so obvious too. Like when people try to manipulate, especially when it comes to the church and stuff, because you can easily just step outside. If I was an outsider and I didn't know any of these things that they're talking about, these terms, these verses, anything, like I would feel like I would kind of feel like, yeah, you're just trying to manipulate me, you know? I mean, and even if, like, yeah, like Luke, you said, even if there was a guy that's just totally like, you know, not trying to do that, right? But like someone would see it as manipulation. Like, how do you get over that hump? Yeah, I mean, because I'm sure you felt like, I mean, you know, Gabby, when you grew up, I mean, with the Jehovah's Witness thing, like, did you ever feel
I'd
manipulated?
like to clarify that because that ended when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So.
Fine, let's tell us. Hey, I'm interested in your life from 0 to 8 right now.
I mean, do you guys really hold that many memories from 9? I mean,
no.
I don't.
I remember
If someone were to bring something up, it like jog my memory. Sure, there's probably some stuff in there. But
I remember my friends and I
remember
hitting each other
anything.
with branches and stuff. Yeah,
you know what I mean? What
Killing
would that have
Some
been?
things, but
killing
Like kindergarten, first grade.
killing small animals.
Recess, what a time.
what were you gonna say?
No, I was just. I mean, have you ever felt manipulated by any of your family who's in?
Oh, for sure,
You know,
sure. But you just have to have the clarity and the confidence in yourself and your conscience that, like, I don't need to think the way that they think. I know I'm a good person. Like, I know I don't take advantage of people.
yeah. The issue here is like with the influencer thing. How many people who just are constantly looking at other people's lives to try to fulfill their own life online?
Oh, all the time.
Like, well, how many of those
It's an
people do you
escape,
think
yeah.
have that kind of confidence in knowing who they are?
Probably not a lot.
So they're just very prone to being manipulated by anybody.
It's the
Yeah.
perversion thing again.
Well, people just want to feel accepted, and they want to.
Yeah.
They just want to have a group or whatever that they're all on the same page, and
And it could be, it could be a group that believes some crazy crap. But
but
it's
that's
like,
their people.
It's
Right.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's
Justin
also
at the party.
yeah.
JP!
Let's go. And you know, the interesting thing though is there's a fine line between because I heard, I don't know if it was like a meme or a quote, but it was basically saying like every time you hop on social media, it's essentially like you're entering like a different world. Like you're tuning out of the physical world that you're just in, and now
Yeah.
like this becomes your reality.
Right.
And so it's like, sure, you know, anything done in its proper container, you know, not abused, you know, it can be good or it can be helpful. But now we're seeing like, dude, stats are like concerning, like how much screen time kids are getting, like on average, like if they're not monitored and they just are like,
Yeah.
you know, 8+ hours a day. It's like,
Yeah.
where do you even, but like, I mean, we obviously use our phones a lot for work. So you'll get those like weekly reports and I'm like, holy crap, there's no way I was on
Well,
my
it
phone
really
that
messes
much.
with their attention span.
It's
It's like, what's that one show that people are saying, like, don't let your kids watch it because they change, I don't know, scenes or clips like every like 4 or 5 seconds.
anime,
Well, that's what it's become.
No, it's not
Cocomelon.
anime. Cocomelon. That's the one.
Cocoa Melon. And they do it just
Don't
to
ask me
keep
why I
kids'
know that.
attention, but it's it's
Luke
like
with
a
all the cartoon
drug.
references.
I'm locked in.
It's like a drug.
I even,
children.
You know what's crazy? No, so
I saw an article
this
about-
is like the whole thing because it leaves the kids. So I told this to a friend who's staying with us right now, but basically it was I was watching my son play Fortnite, which I'm trying to get him on a different video game because it is like,
But it's hard when all his other friends are doing that, right?
and he's spent so much money on the game.
right, he's
Right?
super invested.
It was
yeah.
a free game, but we've spent over $100 on that
Classic.
game.
What a
Just
model.
skins, is that all you buy? Just
Oh yeah,
skins?
like yeah, because I mean he got
It's just-
he got V-Bucks is what they call them to spend in the
So
game.
it's just a different character, like appearance purely?
Yeah, well,
That's
all
it?
kinds of stuff. I mean, you have different weapons, you
Yes.
have different stuff you can have. Like most of it's the skins. So my mom,
I've never done
my
Fortnite.
mom gave my
neither.
son, you know, some V-Bucks, which is, I mean, I give him V-Bucks, but he bought like Master Chief, which is pretty,
gangster.
which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I can get him. Jay's like, I can get him
Yeah,
over that.
yeah. So
yeah.
All right, you can play for a couple hours.
I'll sign that off.
no, which
son.
is great.
Yeah, as long as you're playing for Master Chief.
But
there's
what
no
I'm saying,
rules.
like, I'm just like, but the thing is, from where Fortnite started, because I played Fortnite when it first came out, and it was just a battle royale. It was pretty simple. You could build stuff, but it wasn't like real intense on the building, you know? And so I would just go and like, you would just loot, try to find the treasure, the big guns, and then like be the last one standing. Now it's just like all these different worlds. You have missions, you have like custom maps people make, you have like these games people play. It's insane, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, clearly Fortnite wasn't doing it anymore, so they had to make the drug more intense. You know, they had to
Right.
change it. it's just like drugs. Like, so it's just, and people
and
don't
look
relate
at-
to that, but it's very easy to see, like even your
Yeah.
own children, how like the developers
Addiction.
have to keep ahead of their like
100%.
attention span.
Well, and look at
insane.
even the direction that it's moving in the sense of like YouTube took over the world, because now, like, I don't need to have money for a subscription. I can just watch all the YouTube I want. Now, I personally choose to pay to have like no ads. It's just my personal. But like a kid, it's like, okay, so we'll deal with ads. Or now it's like a Fortnite comes out, it's free. Or like even the new Halo came out and they dropped the whole online play for free for anyone that wanted it. Like they're just, the model is changing probably at a rate faster than we can even really adapt healthily to it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just free and you're just giving kids more options to escape, you know,
And it's all about
like a physical like a real world where
it's
it's
all
like,
about money. That's the thing.
like I would be really interested to see statistics in terms of like the percentage of kids that are involved in like youth sports now versus like 20 years ago.
Because we didn't have any screens, but like it was always just like go outside and play with your friends.
Well, part of the issue with the parents is that we stare at screens all day.
Yeah.
You know, and we do things on the computer all day, and that like exhausts our brains. Like, right. So by the time we get home,
Yeah.
when we should be taking the kids to the park or
just
something,
wanna
you know what I
hang
mean?
out.
We just want to hang out and keep looking at our phones or
Yeah.
watch our shows or, you know,
All right.
and it's just crazy because it's like, I don't want to take responsibility completely away from the parents, but it's just like it's a hard situation.
Yeah,
right?
for
sure.
It is hard to deal with.
Well, because even as a parent, if you try to take a super hard stance, like we're not going to do screens or we're going to really limit it and we're going to get outside, it's just
To
more.
do
The
that
problem
yourself,
is,
too.
it's really likely that the kid, if all of his friends have it and they have access to it, like when I was younger, like it was just kind of starting, but like I didn't really have Game Boys or any of the stuff yet. And when the first couple kids started getting them, I remember we would be at recess and they had to like eventually make a rule like no Game Boys at recess, because it turned into like the one or two kids with a Game Boy would bring their Game Boy and we'd all just huddle around and watch him play something.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like-
kids going through video game withdrawal is awful. Dealing with that.
We talked about it. The kid from Ohio shot his parents over Halo.
It's insane. The kind of like the
Jeez.
symptoms are the same.
Those
as-
Ohioans.
And
What
he
do you
was
call
like
them?
a friend of mine. Did I tell that?
Yeah,
Did you hear
yeah.
that story?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't hear
I
that.
remember.
Danny Petrick and the butter knife boy. Yeah.
The
he was
butter
like,
knife boy.
we would do all like pranks at like, we don't need to go into it,
Yeah,
but
we can talk about off the cast. But yeah, it's just like a
wild.
drug. The kids will like wail, they'll scream, like similar like when you see videos of people going through rehab, like in the physical drugs, like their body just can't handle it. It's literally the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's intense.
It's crazy,
Wow.
and it's hard to deal in that. So with technology, the way it's advanced and the way it continues to progress at an exponential rate, it's like we do need more regulation. We do, and we need it faster. And the problem is, like, the governing body, like as a whole, is an imbecile and he can't keep up. Right.
Well, then you can get into the whole conspiracy side of like, are they literally just turning us into just like nutless monkeys?
That's what
To
the rest
just-
of the world feels about America, I feel like.
Yeah, they're just.
Well, increasingly because at one point America was kind of like the epicenter for progress, but now I feel like everyone has the ability to make their own progress now. So it's just like I think it's almost like, and I was listening to a podcast with Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan recently where it was like he was saying how a lot of these countries were still loyal to Russia, like basically that are kind of on the outskirts of the former Soviet Union. And it's just like, how in the world could that be possible, right? A lot of it's propaganda and stuff, but at the same time, it's just like there's an increasingly apparent desire for people, whatever country you're living in, to either align with or so you could claim you're part of the best country in the world. Everyone wants to be the best country in the world, right? So a lot of people do shit on America, right? We have our own issues for sure, like a lot of them. And there's a lot of categories and industries that we're no longer number one in, like, right? Like we're way down the list on a lot of things. But there is also a lot of like people who feel like they live in the best country in the world. Yeah, of course they're going to shit on everyone else. You know what I mean? So,
Or imagine just being in like the middle of the pack. Like if you're just kind of in a second world or still developing nation, I mean, like it's crazy. I forget what podcast I was listening to, but it's like you go to most places in the world. Like I was just in Mexico, right? Puerto Vallarta area, and like we had cell phone service the whole time we were there, right? Like AT&T did this deal recently with the Americas where it's just free, and you can still get your service down there.
That's sweet.
But it's dope. But like you can tell it's like I think we were mostly on like the LTE or the 3G, and it like you can literally I would sit on the beach and I would find myself just getting pissed because I was like, why is this not loading in less than 3 seconds? Like this is ridiculous.
Right.
And it's like without realizing it, it's like you go to most places in the world, like high speed internet, like 5G. It's like sure a lot of developed nations have it, but it's like it's so easy to lose sight of like how many people are still living in straight up poverty. Like I heard a stat that was saying there's more people enslaved today than ever before in human history. So maybe some of that, sure, is because of the amount of people we have.
What's interesting to me is that because of the internet and because Americans, for the most part, have access to this high-speed internet, are we not enslaved by it? Because it's
Sure.
granted, like you look at like the people who were actually in slavery, right? I mean, who would look at us and be like, "How dare you say that?" You know what I mean? It's not the same. And it's like, granted, but hear me out.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Well, it's a mental, psychological prison versus a physical.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think like we're trapped and we just don't realize it half the time?
Right.
You know, I mean, and a lot of the slave drivers, if you will, are these massive companies that are making money on us. They know how to make money on us. They know how to keep our attention. You know, and it's just, I mean, granted, like I like stuff like, you know, Prime Video, Netflix, you know, Hulu, all that. That's entertaining. But like games on your phone, right? Like, or on the Xbox or what, like just how many times are you like playing a game and you're just like, all right, oh, so I can just spend $5 and get this cool car?
Sure.
Like, yeah, sure. I'll do that. You know, it's just like, you don't need that car. You're not going to have any more fun because you got it, right? It's just like, they just manipulated you into
100%. Buying
that, like because out of your like, because they know what you want, they know your human temptation, desire is going to draw you to these things. That's manipulation, straight up, for companies to make money. It happens in every industry, and it's these companies that it's like they don't need any more money. They're not going to go and do good with it. They're just going to continue to develop more addicting games.
What was the big documentary that came out about the social network stuff on Netflix?
Social Dilemma.
Yeah, pretty good. Did you guys hear about the whole, this past week, there's a new golf league called LIV, L-I-V. It's called the LIV Golf League, I think, or something like that. And they just had their first event, and it's basically supposed to be like a rival to like the PGA, where it's like the PGA Tour is like the NFL, right? And then we have all these other like crappy leagues like the USFL or like the AFL.
I don't know. I got high hopes for the XFL now that the Rock's behind it.
Right. So stuff like that, right? So the dilemma is,
I'll try out.
Yeah. A lot of people have been roasting a lot of golfers and kind of the community because it's backed by Saudi money, right? And then like the Saudis have been linked to like all of these airstrikes in Yemen and all these human type of like kind of crimes against humanity stuff. And so it's just this weird thing because you have like people kind of taking a hard stance in some respect where they're just like, it's not okay to take money from, but it's like end of the day, there's corruption everywhere.
You know what's crazy? Yeah, you know what's crazy is because people latch onto that.
Right.
You know, people who are like the patriots of our country will latch onto the fact that it's Saudi money, but then they're like, they won't recognize that the fact that like there are companies here doing more harm. Well, and then and literally Saudi, like they have so much money. It's like they're just looking for investments. They're just looking for ways to spend it, and that could be that innocent. It could just be like is what it is. You know what I mean?
Well, the crazy thing is
they were pitched an investment, and then all of a sudden they invest.
If you win one of these events, you get like I think it's twice as much as you'd make if you won a PGA Tour event.
All right. So how many times we golfing this week? We need to get better.
We need to get on better.
I'm down. I'm down for this live golf thing.
Right.
Let's do it.
So and honestly, like I watched the first event.
We would lose.
It's a little interesting.
We would absolutely.
I kind of like
fine.
certain things about it. But here's what's funny is like you have all these people, and it was kind of a hot button thing for the first week because they're trying to get a lot of big name players to play in it, right? and they got like Dustin Johnson. I think he was like ranked 15 in the world. He was the highest ranked guy that was part of it. But now like Bryson DeChambeau is going to play in it. Patrick Reed, like bigger name guys are going to come and start playing in it. It's becoming like a thing. And now people are calling on like the PGA to ban these guys from like the majors, like the big events, because like whatever their connection to.
Well, yeah, but the PGA right now,
They would never.
that's the thing. Anytime a monopoly is challenged,
Well, right.
you know what
But
I mean?
People
It's
are
just-
coming
you could
at
argue
it
that
from
there should be tons of leagues.
If the PGA
If you're really gonna
took
let
out
it-
the big name people, then they would also cease to exist.
Well, and it's only because they're putting all of their like chips on the reality of like the dirty Saudi money, right? That's like their convenient argument. But like, look at something like,
How is it dirty though?
well, just because of
where it came
like the
from?
crimes against humanity that the Saudi government has perpetrated over it. But that's like Middle
Dude, how
East.
many
any
American
sort of Middle East
companies
money.
outsource in horrible working conditions?
Well, how much, we buy
it's just
oil
like,
from all
what?
those countries in the Middle East. Like we already
Such
do
a
business
double
with them.
standard. I mean, it's just what I was saying is like we're happy to excuse it if the company is headquartered here. Like,
Look at the NBA, dude.
You know what I mean?
Look at how
Like-
much money the NBA makes from China. Like China's got like concentration camps with Uyghurs where
Yeah.
they're just killing like one kind of sect within the Muslim faith.
insane.
And I mean, we know that's happening and people just don't talk about it. And we're just,
insane.
it's, so there's, I mean, I don't know. Anywhere you look in the world, I'm sure you could find double standards.
it's not, but it's not so much about that stuff's happening and we acknowledge it. But what I'm saying is if you're going to have a problem with one thing, you're going to have to open that can to everything.
Well, so the problem, like, and this kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I'm a LeBron James guy, like, till I die, right? And we saw him, I'm, like, biggest fan at this point. Wherever he goes, I'm a fan of that team.
What if
till
he
he's
murders
out of the
someone?
league.
Are you still gonna be a LeBron?
Well, he
fan?
probably won't be in the NBA anymore. But
Strictly basketball.
as long as
But
he's
you're
playing
still a fan.
basketball, I can't not be. I mean, the man is like
Do no
so much of
wrong.
my life. No, but like he became very outspoken with a lot of the racial injustice stuff that happened in the last few years in America, and he'll be the first one to tweet about things, and like especially like he was real vocal about that was that Kyle Rittenhouse one where the kid went to Wisconsin with like a gun to protect like I don't know, whatever.
I mean,
they're basically
people shouldn't speak out about stuff. They don't know all the facts too, for sure.
but like that's where
I mean, the George Floyd one, there's a video. It's obvious, like what happened. I mean, it's a horrible thing. And
For sure.
Obviously that
100%.
I think everyone agrees that was just an awful thing.
Right.
Right.
But that's where you get this duplicity of it's like, so people will be real fast and quick to call out this stuff, when it doesn't really hurt their bottom line. But it's like, okay, so I don't see you saying anything about human rights
Injustices.
atrocities
Yeah.
in China. And
Right.
a lot of your money comes from China, being such a big basketball player.
Yeah.
Like it was even a whole story where, was it Daryl Morey, the guy from the Rockets? Spoke out like against like some of the stuff happening in China.
Well, how much
they
of that
tried to
too-
they literally tried to silence and like cancel the dude.
Well, how much of that too is like the Chinese people aren't LeBron's people
Right.
either. So I mean, I'm sure LeBron feels a personal connection to a lot of the racial injustice type
Right,
stuff.
right.
So I absolutely appreciate that.
But
Granted,
it's just all to the fact that it's like it's convenient to just keep your
Sure.
mouth shut when
Yeah.
you're getting a lot of money from somewhere.
yeah, the truly
and then-
the truly righteous stance would be to be against all injustices.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Even
that's
if it's inconvenient for your bottom line.
Well, and that's the hard reality. It's like now we're living in a world and a culture where our heroes. I mean, it's just the way it is now. I mean, you don't really have a lot of people because, like, you look at someone like Jesus from the scriptures. Like, clearly, he would be against injustice anywhere. He's not concerned about his income in a sense. But we live in a world that's just so far from reality. now.
If Jesus came back, no one would even know it. Mm-hmm. I mean, no one would know. Like, I mean, this is crazy to me. There's so much noise out in the world. Mm-hmm. You just
I don't know. The way it's described how he's coming back might be pretty obvious.
might be.
Question.
But I mean, is that just the way people assumed it would be? And that's kind of how they recorded it.
Because if we were to write the book now, would he come back in a flying Tesla?
I think
Because he's supposed to come back on like a white horse.
I don't.
And it's just
think
like,
so.
I don't think anyone's really going
it's
to do this with horses
a white
anymore.
Tesla. It's going to be a white Tesla.
I'm just like, wait. Like we got like lasers and stuff now. I don't think.
What is lasers?
I'm just saying like the whole story is kind of written from the context of like this is our like it's got to be a horse and like
that's the iconic like symbol of the modern era is lasers.
it's like Lord of the Rings, right? He's got to come back like riding the white horse.
This shoots lasers out of its eyes.
100%.
That's the modern version of that.
100%.
I see that. You ever see The Boys? Do you watch any of The Boys?
That show is insane.
Oh man, let's just not admit that we watched that. It's probably not good for business.
Just move on.
So to like just kind of walk a couple more things back, we talked about OnlyFans. So in every way, do you think OnlyFans is wrong? Like, right? So from a biblical perspective,
I don't.
Well, I know.
Okay,
we know,
sure.
Gabby, we know your stance.
I have to go to the bathroom.
We're gonna continue the conversation.
So-
Okay.
I don't know, man. Because then you can get into this. You can get into this whole thing of like, so if you're not putting nude pictures or videos up there, is it also wrong to like get published in like Sports Illustrated, like as a
well, if you
female
find that, if you
athlete
find
or-
that wrong, then that's wrong too. Yeah, there's not.
That's what I'm
there
saying.
can't be.
No, right? That's
Because
what,
it's
that's
like
what
you're
we're
just getting
saying.
down to this slippery slope
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
you're
Well, then
never
that's wrong,
allowed to
too.
profit off of your body or your likeness, which is like
For sure.
That's ultimately what like these
Where
TikTok
do you-
influencers
where
are
do you
doing
draw the
anyways.
line? Yeah.
So you can like make cringe like videos of you lip syncing, and it's like, but there were no nipples, so
Right.
you know, it's like
That
one
is crazy.
One
That's
just
one
gets
of-
put in like this bucket of like
oh
wrong.
man. Yeah, because if there's not a line to be drawn, you can't. It's like you can't draw it, and that's okay. So that goes back to the whole. You can't draw a line anywhere, really, and it's up to your. And granted, it goes also too to like when we talked about people in the church policing people, enforcing life change. You can't do that, right? Like you read the book, you connect with God, and you understand what He's telling you to do. Like it's just like what are your personal convictions, right? And it's like of course, like people are going to talk about my truth versus other, it's just like all that, right? But it really is as simple as, I mean. You kind of read what God's telling you, and then like, you process for yourself. You kind of talk to Him about it, and then it's just like, all right, well, I think this is wrong. I think this is right. I think this is fine. And granted, like, it's crazy when you go back to, you try to like argue each side of it, and you like reduce it like down to like that Sports Illustrated example, or any example where you're on the front cover of anything, fully clothed, right? Like what? Where is that line drawn, right?
Right.
So
This is still like an ego thing.
yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy.
It's tricky.
So you just let people think of that. But so going back, we kind of climbed the pyramid and we're coming back down. So back to universal basic income.
The pyramids that the aliens built.
Yeah. Oh jeez. All right. So
I'm dying on that hill.
The aliens built pyramids.
I'm just
Or
saying.
you think they helped?
I think an advanced civilization. I don't think it was what we typically think it was, personally.
I did hear a crazy theory that there are aliens that were planted, like basically like seeds that were planted, so like we talk about creation, this still like kind of coincides with what the Bible could have meant as well. Cause we've talked about like maybe there's life elsewhere that God did this again, but there was a theory that like we were planted here and then life was also planted kind of right outside outside of our solar system in our galaxy. And the aliens that we interact with or think we interact with, which could be invisible, are, or like these little encounters that we film and see, like we can't explain, are them like, and because they're like similar technology, maybe they're only 10 times more advanced than us, is because we started from a similar place. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they came and built the pyramids.
Yeah.
No one was
I got about a 30-minute video that I've watched a few times, and it's
You watched it a few times. That's concerning. You watch any video a few times, it's concerning.
No, because it's fascinating stuff. Because it really gets into the whole like, I mean, they incorporate like Tesla and kind of like we could probably do a whole.
What I need to do
on
is
astrology.
go to the end of the video. What videos are suggested? That will tell me a lot about that video.
I'm pretty sure the one I'm talking about comes from. Have you ever heard of the YouTube page called After School? Shout out After School.
I think I have.
and it's spelled like SKOOL, but it's basically,
Of course, it is the cool way to spell it.
well, because the whole point is like it's things that you'll
Like
never.
Fruit Loops.
Yeah,
Right?
it's stuff that they'll never
learn
teach
that.
you in like in school, but it's like it's a
Mandela.
lot of stuff that just kind of challenges conventional wisdom, kind of a thing.
All right.
I think it's
I
like,
see that. I could see that. Like it.
but it's a lot of it is, I don't know. Have you ever heard of Graham Hancock? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he does a lot of it. Oh, here it is, right here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See, 8.4 million views.
Dang.
It's not like absolute nonsense. It came out. This was 2 years old.
There's videos that got like 50 million views that are absolute nonsense.
Okay, that's fair. But here's what's crazy, and we could probably do an entire podcast on this topic, but like
Excited.
astrology, right? Where that gets such a bad rap.
Let's do that next. I want to do that next.
I'm down. Where it gets such a, this will be a little teaser, and gets such a bad rap in like our communities. Because I remember one time, bro, this was hilarious. I remember one time,
Dude, I legit, like, yeah, okay, sorry.
I was around some like, we don't need to give names or it's not important. But when people like will get into stuff like angel numbers or like special numbers, things like that. And then like certain like religious or church people will just be like, oh, you got to be careful with that stuff. That's like, it, like they
Angel
get like,
numbers?
I think it ties into like some astrology stuff or something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly. But it's like, it
Like
is.
the moon cycle and shit
I don't
like
remember.
that. Like,
Yeah. So I'd have to go back and really get into it. But it's basically things that like aren't purely like scriptural that talk about, because, you know, in like the Bible, all the numbers kind of have a meaning. Like I think 4 is like the number of completion and 6 is the number of man. 7 is like supposed to be like, not like heaven, but something like, I don't know.
Well, that because of that, people try to read numbers into everything then.
100%. Yeah, people like to do that. But the astrology thing in this video, it kind of wraps up and it talks about where it actually comes from. And it's actually purely scientific based off of the wobble of the earth and the direction the axis is pointing in, and it's pointing at a specific constellation. So that's where they all came from.
Right.
And so it's like when you actually hear it explained like in the way that like people believed it, like throughout hundreds and thousands of years, you're just like, yeah, it's not as crazy as like, because I think like nowadays
Yeah, but people are
like,
just using it as an excuse for
I'm an
behavior.
Aries, so I get to be crazy or whatever.
Christina's an Aries, and I literally read her horoscope yesterday because I never
check
do
out?
this, but it's funny that you mentioned this because, well, no. It was basically like, it was reading the horoscope for today. Like, so like,
Yeah, see,
you read
that's
the
a
day
little-
before. No, it's like the reading it the day before. It's basically like, oh, here's what you can expect tomorrow. Just be ready for this and this and whatever. It's more of an encouraging thing.
Gotcha.
But it was just like I don't know. I did it as a joke because she was going to talk to someone like who I knew was into this stuff. So I was like, here, let me read your horoscope. But yeah, it's crazy. We can talk about that for sure. But to wrap up the whole UBI again, we're going to just try to stay on this for a second. So yeah, I guess what are your thoughts? Because obviously this is something that a lot of people would claim is, an un-American idea, right?
Yeah.
Because we're basically just giving money to people to live,
Yeah.
who, are capable of work, right? So what are your thoughts? Like, cause I feel like at some point, to some degree is a good idea. Like it's going to be necessary.
Yeah. I just think,
And granted, you always have that opportunity to make more money if you want. I mean, this isn't going to be, you're not going to be living on like a baller on this money, right? But it's just, I see where things are going and I feel like it's going to be necessary.
yeah, I think, I mean, the pushback primarily comes from people who like talk about like, North Korea or like, is it El Salvador? Where are they going through a lot of like really rough stuff, socialism and communism, where it's like the problem is people think that it's like, okay, so,
China, I mean,
yeah, that as well. So it's like bread lines, and it's going to turn into kind of like the ruling class, and then just everyone else. But I agree. I think ultimately, the world is changing at a pace that essentially outpaces our ability to really adapt to it. And so I think, like, I don't think it's helpful to give people free money. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, if we're 10 years out from, AI or robots doing, 50% of the work that people were used to doing, America's like, 340 million people. So what do you do if you got 100 million people that?
So there's a lot of things on Google about like where it didn't work, right? People always talk about communism, like, it was all stuff. It's like, oh, where UBI didn't work. right now, it looks like Finland's the only country to have carried out a nationwide randomized control trial of UBI. I don't know what that means. I could dig into more off the podcast.
What do the taxes look like there? Because I always hear that like where they're doing it, it's like taxes are crazy anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't imagine you get taxed on UBI. That feels pointless to me. But maybe you do. Because maybe if you're a rich guy, in order to make it simple, you still get the UBI, but then you're taxed like crazy on it. I don't know. That's interesting.
I can see that.
But I mean, because right now taxes are too complicated.
Right.
Dude, I would honestly rather have a flat tax than the crap I got to go through every year. You know what I mean? Like, and I granted a lot of like, the more money you make, the lesser you're going to have that stance probably because, you know, the tax system currently allows a lot of loopholes for rich people to get away with not paying taxes. I mean, this is what it is. But
well, and the hard part too is like we've seen it even in America recently where like, you know, because who wants to pay more taxes than they need to, right? Like
middle class pays the most taxes.
Yeah, nobody wants to give, like no one's going to do their taxes and they're just like, no, I think I'm going to throw the government an extra like $500 this year. Like,
no one does that. No one does that.
And the unfortunate part is you have these giant companies. We saw like when Amazon will come in and start buying up market share of like the grocery space, and they just buy like Whole Foods. And like, so now they're because they're so big and they make so much money in so many different places, like they can come into like a space and they can offer like, you know, how many markets do they have that like that free delivery for food? Well, I forget what they call it, like Amazon Go or something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like because they can subsidize or take a loss in one place where like a mom and pop shop like can't really afford, or even when it comes to like wages with employees, like because like if they're able to do it, they kind of reset the market, and then it just strangles out all of the smaller mom and pop that really have to be really careful about, you know, their ledgers and their balance books. And so, you know, we saw where the monopolies just in the last few years came in and just are taking more and more and more because we in America are just little sluts for convenience and anything that's easier, faster, better.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I'm just as guilty.
A lot of people will be displaced by all these, like the big company and Amazon. It's not like they're doing less efficiently. They're doing more efficiently.
Right.
So they could probably, I mean, I'm making stuff up here, but they could probably run, you know, a grocery outlet or some kind of place where you would go for all that with a third of the people than a mom and pop would. So you're displacing all those jobs. And it's just like, well, you could argue that with AI, with all this new technology, a commensurate amount of jobs are created, you know, to make up for the ones that lost, but I don't buy into that. I don't think they are. I think companies are trying to find ways to do things with less people. And that's partly why they're creating AI. So I think it's just going to become an increasing problem.
Well, so, there's a whole other like topic of like, think about like our kind of work environment here where it's like we have a deep like I would say we have like a deep value for just like community.
Speak
and
for
like
yourself, Justin.
Yeah.
I'm in it for me.
Yeah, right. And not purely just like, you know, profit, which is not that that's a bad thing, but like you have these giant organizations and like they employ people just to make, you know, to trim the fat or to make, you know, better decisions logistically or, you know, where it's just like, I can imagine just working for a place like Amazon, you're just like, you feel like just like a little cog in the machine and it's like, you're not really valued. Like it's just, I mean, I don't know how you could have
some companies do better with that. Like Publix does a good job.
Right.
I've heard from employees. They do a good job with that.
But if that's not just like a big core, like kind of pillar of why you do your business, then it's just like,
well, I mean, companies, they want people to feel like cogs on, they want people to feel replaceable. And a lot of companies won't say it, but that's how they, you know, that's really how they see their people. And so they don't want to get too close. They don't want that sense of community to be too high because they need to be able to just fire them if they need to cut costs. So Gabby or Luke, what do you guys think about the whole idea about UBI?
I don't know. I'm not.
You know what it is?
Yeah, I mean, today is the first time I've ever heard of it, so
how's it hit you?
Have an opinion, probably.
How's it hit you?
It's interesting.
Some free money would be good, huh?
I wouldn't be opposed. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So the hard
any
part-
ins and outs about it.
Yeah,
all.
because the hardest part for me is like,
You would probably get taxed more on what you do make above and beyond that, right? I mean, the taxes would have to go up to pay for it.
well, yeah, because that first of all, yeah, where's the money come from? Especially if everyone's getting it,
Yeah.
and then you have a whole other conversation about like, okay, so if someone's here and they may not have come here legally, like, are we just not going to give them any money?
Well,
Or are we
I
gonna
think
give them money?
I think that the process for becoming a U.S. citizen needs revamped completely. And if you're going to, dude, you hear some of the stuff.
I just have
that
no
they get-
faith in
dude. Some of the
Congress to
stuff they
actually
get,
do it.
some of the stuff they get tested on as immigrants to become citizens is insane.
Well, yeah, most like
It's just
citizens
like-
wouldn't be able to pass the test.
No, I know. This is like, okay, what year did this happen? It's just like, who the hell cares? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it should be more of a psychological test than anything. Like, okay, is this person an agent of destruction? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and if that's not the case, then sure, you can be a citizen. I mean, I don't know. Like, I just some of the stuff is just crazy to me, and that needs revamped. But yeah, if someone becomes a citizen, I think they would be entitled to that, right? But it would be after going through that process. You know, I mean, you're not just gonna. And there would have to be probably, I don't know how they would do it, but I imagine there'd be restrictions from sending that money out of the country.
Right.
That's one of the biggest, because a lot of people come here to make money so they can send money into their, you know, which is fine. But it's like, it'd be the money that you make above and beyond that. That would be the money you could send, not necessarily that. In my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it probably funnels into a larger conversation that like by the time you actually spend your money, it's taxed what, like 4 or 5 times?
Yeah.
Between-
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Gabby, any thoughts on that? UBI?
Yep, no. Good.
Cool.
I'm gonna get that check. Well, I mean, we kind of did a mini little social experiment with COVID, and it's like, did it make us like more or less productive as people? Like just giving people free money.
That's the problem is though, we gave people free money and we told them to stay at home. That wasn't the right. Yeah, it wasn't really. That's not really what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying that is right or wrong. I can only speak.
You're saying
for
what did
myself.
people do with the money?
Like I mean, sure, maybe part of it is how it was spent, but I just like to be given things that I didn't really like work for. It didn't. I don't know. Like you want to believe that it's going to make people like want to like be thankful and want to work harder. But I just know for me, like it was just like
sure, you bought more stuff with it, but if you knew that you were going to be taxed more because you did receive free money, it didn't happen this time, but like at some point, I imagine taxes will go. I mean, just with inflation,
for like
everything.
like the other income.
Yeah.
you're
So
saying.
if you're saying that, like, if you're saying like, hey, I'm going to get this free money, but at the same time, it's like I'm paying for it too. It's not just free money coming from nowhere. You know, like it's just I'm a fan of UBI and I'm a fan of a flat tax. I mean, honestly, because it's just like everyone gets taxed the same, no matter. I mean, you know, it is what it is. And so any money you make above and beyond that, you realize, all right, I'm getting taxed more on that. Maybe I should save this. Maybe I should spend more responsibly. You know, I mean, and it's their prerogative to save it, right? Like the U.S. government, I think when they sent out stimulus money, or not stimulus, but whatever money that was sent out, it was really like I think they really hoped people would spend it on the stuff that they needed to spend, like rent or food or whatever. Or even when they buy stuff, they're paying money to a company that you would. I mean, the problem is like a lot of these companies are not really in our country, but you know, you would hope that you're buying stuff that then those companies are paying their. You know what I mean? So you're keeping companies alive, even if you're buying useless stuff. It's like you're still stimulating the economy and allowing it to work.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be such a massive overhaul because aren't we already like $1 trillion like in the red on our average like yearly like budget?
Does that matter? I mean, does it matter?
Well, no, but now what we're living in where we went and just printed trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
And now it's like gas is $5. Like if I fill up my car, it's like $90, which is like bananas.
It sucks.
So the challenge, but what I'm saying then is, so the challenge is because if we're already $1 trillion in the negative on our yearly budget, like where are we going to get the money if we just start giving people more money, printing more money? I mean,
That's not the whole idea.
Would
Isn't
move in a direction.
The idea
where,
isn't to print money. Ultimately, the idea was to like have to be a transition period to where you would you'd have to increase the tax commensurate to
I just don't think
the money you're giving out.
I just don't think there's a way to. Yeah, I don't know.
Something's gonna have to happen.
Yeah,
Either that, or you specify that, like, hey, if you've been doing this work for so many years, you're gonna get this government stimulus. Which it's going to have to come from somewhere.
yeah.
And
Well,
maybe it's the corporations and companies that are benefiting from
Yeah.
automation that have to pay that. I don't know.
Well, good. I mean, we could probably don't need to keep going. I feel like we've been going for a minute.
Yeah, it's
but,
been an hour and a
About
half.
an hour and a half.
Yeah,
Gabby's done.
she's
Dude.
on it.
All right.
Not gonna say it.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for watching and listening. And we will see you later this week.